Hello, everyone. My name is Sebastian, and the topic that me and my group will be discussing about is should we use animals for testing drugs, food, chemicals, and cosmetics? And we are against this, and the class is Animals in Society 67, and we are group 5. And the rest of my group members are Tamia, Stevie, and Alex. For the first slide is history and background of animal testing. History and background. So to begin with, humans have been testing on animals and using them as a check safety in the food we eat, the cosmetics we use, and to test new drugs being produced. Testing started as early as 500 BC, where people started to dissect on the animals to figure out how our anatomy of our intestines work and how our human body works. In Rome, they had practiced dissections on alleged criminals. Greek philosopher Theophrastus was the first to believe that it was morally wrong for us to dissect on animals and use them for testing, first starting the debate on whether animals should be put through this abuse. Years later, a French philosopher named René Descartes practiced animal testing and experimentations, yet he believed that animals do not feel pain unlike humans. He believed that animals have a brief memory, so they would not feel pain like humans do. Moving further into the 18s and the early 19s, animal testing for food, drugs, chemicals, and cosmetics became a matter of public opinion. The first article about animal testings were published shedding light on the reality of the abuse of animal testing. On to my next slide, ethical aspects. Ethical aspects. Animal experiments are meant to help develop new medicines and products for us, but society does not see firsthand the pain that these animals are put through on a daily basis, many without proper nutrition and veterinary care. Performing these inhuman experiments on these animals reduces animal populations, causes illness and injury, and many lose their lives. Through years and years of animal testing, no benefits to humans are actually being proven through this abuse. It is unethical to put our own human needs over the lives of animals, as it is our responsibility to look after animals and their welfare. Animal rights are violated through senseless testing. There are other viable options to test substances, such as using human cells and tissues to test on in laboratory settings versus testing on living creatures. On to my next slide. Cultural and sociological importance. Cultural. Culture is generally a powerful determinant of human perceptions of animals and the treatment animals receive in a given society. In many cultures across the world, it is seen that each person has a responsibility to animal welfare. This can be seen in some Greek writings and is paralleled in Islamic culture and teachings. There is a minority of Christians, Hindus, and Buddhists that believe animals should not be used for food or any other purposes, like testing for drugs, food, chemicals, and cosmetics. Sociological. Numerous studies have been conducted to explore public attitudes toward animal use, more specifically the use of animals in research. As a society, age, gender, and sex affects the public's view on the use of animals for testing certain substances. Younger generations are more likely to be opposed to the cruelty of animal testing. Society as a whole is the only group with enough power to derail companies from testing on animals. With so many materials and chemicals having been already tested and proved safe, society would hardly feel the impacts if animal testings were rendered illegal.
Hi, my name is Tamia Fuller, and today we'll be talking about the cons of animal testing. So, as on my first bullet point, you'll see that the first reasoning for this is that animal testing is cruel and inhumane. So, according to the Humane Society International, animals used in experiments are commonly subjected to force feeding, inhalation, food and water deprivation, long times in restraints, and wounding and burns so researchers can study the healing process. The U.S. Department of Agriculture also reported in 2016 that 71,370 animals suffered pain during experiments giving no anesthesia for pain relief. This shows that animals do indeed feel pain and they are able to experience the same things that we feel, and that even though they are maybe just an animal, they are experiencing pain and an unnecessarily prolongation to such horrendous environments. Also in the same article, it says that 1,200 of these animals are primates, 6,000 being rabbits, 25,000 being guinea pigs, and 33,000 being hamsters. And this leads on to my bottom point here, which shows that the Animal Welfare Act has not succeeded in preventing horrific cases of animal abuse in research laboratories, because there's still these thousands and thousands of animals being tortured and tested on in these laboratories. So going on to my next point, which is alternative testing methods now exist that can replace the needs for animals. And this is true because there is a new way of testing called vitro testing, which is studying cell cultures and petri dishes. Produces more results than the animal testing counterparts because human cells are used, and this is actually affecting human cells. And since this is not just like an animal cell or there is any composition differences, it helps us see more into how this may affect us, and also saving animal lives in the process. Another alternative testing method that could be used is called a microdosing. And what that is microdosing is where they inject a non-lethal amount into the bloodstream, and they then take out some blood from the patient, and then they test it and look through it and to see if it caused any cellular reactions on a cellular level on the body. So it helps show that we don't need animals in order to help test and predict like things in the body. So in my next bullet point, it'll say that animal tests do not reliably predict results in human beings. So, according to the New England Anti-Vivisection Society, the metabolic and ana- anatomic and cellular differences between animals and people make animals poor models for human beings. And so, practically, what this quote is saying that, oh, since we have different processing mechanisms, since we have different cellular structures, our DNA is different, it leads to there not being any for sure results like this is how it's going to act if I inject it into an adult human, because like this that's like, for example, comparing our stomach processing the same as like a cow's stomach, things like that. So there's like most definitely differences between these, and they are and this just shows even more how unnecessary animal testing is. So on my next bullet point, you'll see that drugs that pass animal tests are not necessarily safe. So to to view more into that, um, in the 1950s, a sleeping pill called thalidomide caused 10,000 babies to be born with severe birth deformities, which was tested on animals before its release and had no effects on them. As stated, this was stated by the Science Museum in UK. Another example of this is another drug called Vitox had helped mice during the testing phase, and it helped strengthen their heart, which was what the drug was supposed to do. But this drug went on to human testing. It went on to be mass produced, and it caused 27,000 heart attacks before being realized, according to the NBC. And was it? And also, 94% of drugs that pass animal tests fail in human trials. According to Understanding the Animal Research.org, over 100 stroke drugs and 85 HIV vaccines failed in humans due to this belief, according to the neurologist Asha Akhtar. So, in my next bullet point, you'll see that it says that 95% of animals used in experiments are not protected by the Animal Welfare Act. And this is true because the act does not cover rats, mice, fish, birds, which leaves about 25 million tested animals uncovered, according to the Hastings Center's fact sheets. So, even though there are like guards in place by that were helped by the Animal Welfare Act, there is still ways that laboratories and research centers are slipping through this to get uh, to harm the animals. And my last bullet point you'll see here is that animal tests are more expensive than alternative methods and are a waste of government research dollars. And this is said and this thing was said in order to support this, is that according to Senator Jeff Flake, over 7.3 million tax dollars are wasted on animal studies. And according to PETA, they found that $56.4 million of government funds have been wasted on animal experimentation until 2017. So this shows that we, even though there's all of these alternative and reasonable testing methods, that we are not using our resources properly to help them, and not only help them, but help ourselves in the process to further ourselves, and also be realizing that animals do have a part in our society where they could be have their rights and be able to live a painless free life. Now, to my next point, and I just added a couple facts about animal testing that also flows well with the points I said earlier. And so, in 2016, California used more cats, which were and dogs for testing than any other site. For cats, it's 2,216. Dogs, 5,504. And in Ohio, the most used testing animals are guinea pigs, which are 33,797 guinea pigs. And in Massachusetts, they use primates, which is monkeys, chimpanzees, things like that, which are 10,583. And these statistics were given by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Plant and Health Inspection Service. And another fun fact add is that the United States and Gabon are the only two countries that allow experimentation on chimpanzees, and this was given by the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada, Conservation and Threats. And this just shows that like chimpanzees and humans share a very similar structure, and we are experimenting on them even though they're a very close relative to us, which is which is unnecessary and also shown to be at extreme, as only two countries are doing that out of all the countries in the world. So as I was saying earlier, there's another section of this that showed that that animal conditions, animal treatment, and research centers are very harmful for, as stated by the Scientific American. The Draize Eyes test is used by cosmetic companies to evaluate irritation caused by shampoos and other products such as conditioners, things like that. And it involves rabbits being incapacitated with things like a certain machine called a stock holding their eye open with clips. And these rabbits are subjected to holding their eyes open for multiple days, so they can't blink away any of the products that they're dropping into their eye, which is very painful for them and can lead to death in some cases.
Hi, it's Stevie Scott, and I'm going to be continuing on with our presentation about animal testing, starting off with current events related to our topic. So the first current event I'm going to start with was quite recent, just in the month of October, where the Humane Society of the United States, or HSUS, went on an undercover investigation into Charles River Laboratories in Michigan to see the treatment of laboratory animals that were being used for testing there. More than 22 beagles were being used for testing for new drugs. It was discovered in this investigation that they were being held in 20 by 30-inch crates without food or water. The animals suffered from forced ingestions, painful surgeries, and all faced euthanasia. They also had undergone surgeries to have drug implantation devices implanted in their skin to continuously inject drugs into their system. Many of the living conditions for these animals went against the regulations that are on animal testing, which is unfortunately a common thing in laboratories everywhere. All of the beagles seen in this investigation ended up facing death shortly after the investigation had ended. And I'm going to show you a tidbit from a video that was taken in the investigation that will kind of show you the treatment of these dogs, that many of were puppies as well. So I will play this for you. So there you can clearly see the inhumane treatment of these dogs. So another current event is the deception of cosmetic and drug companies. So basically, when a drug or cosmetic is produced on the bottle, the term animal cruelty free and not tested on animals can be printed on these bottles and packaging. Without that actually being true, it is very well possible that these products were tested on animals, and most definitely in a cruel way. So here is a tidbit from a news article that came out on television. It's from a ways back, but it kind of sums up what's going on with this issue in today's marketing of these products.
Food and Drug Administration told us there is no definition. Their website says no legal definitions for these terms. The agency even admits the unrestricted use of these phrases by cosmetics companies is possible.
The Food and Drug Administration has said that they will not and do not regulate those terms. Therefore, companies have free will to say whatever they want, make their own no animal testing claims, and have no data to back it up.
I feel a little bit shocked and kind of
So that kind of sums up that deception within these companies about animal testing. So here's a quote by Michael O. Levitt, the former Secretary for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Currently, 9 out of 10 experimental drugs fail in clinical studies because we cannot accurately predict how they will behave in people based on laboratory animal studies. So basically, this is saying that yes, we are testing on animals and seeing if they are safe on animals, but that can't accurately predict if they're actually safe because animals and humans are two completely different species, and you still can't predict whether these will be safe in humans. So it's not completely accurate, which is another reason we should not be testing on animals. So moving on to some pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. In this image, you can see a rabbit undergoing an eye irritation test in which substances are put into their eyes to test for irritation. So the idea that the safety and protection of human beings is more profound than that of animals is conscienceless and unprincipled. Pain in others should not paramount the safety of drugs, foods, chemicals, and cosmetics. Animals have been on this planet just as long as humans has. It's unethical to say that one is better or more important than the other. So some more pictures you might find disturbing. This is a cat undergoing a sound localization test in which a hole is drilled into their skull and electrodes are implanted in their brain in order to test drug therapy. This was at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. This cat did eventually die, as most do with this certain test. So here you can see rabbits also undergoing an eye irritation test is what was going on in this picture. They're being held in restraints to test resorcinol, which is used in many cosmetics. Here, this is at the Laboratory for Pharmacology and Toxicology in Germany, where a monkey is being held within a restraint to undergo multiple injections for drugs. You can definitely see the anguish that this monkey is in. These pictures kind of speak for themselves here.
So now we're going to go over some of the major points of our PowerPoint presentation. So first thing that we would like you to remember is that animal experimentation has been around for centuries and has been dependent on costing millions and millions of animals' lives. Another point that I'd like for you guys to remember is that a lot of animals testing violates animals' rights, and that animals also feel pain with us too, and that we should be keeping them in consideration with us as well. Another major point is that depending on the culture, the use of animals is actually for experimentation are actually frowned upon and if you want to be respectful for all cultures, we should keep in mind this. Another point is that in recent times there's been a huge trend for those supporting alternative ways of testing in order to help support these animals. And so if we can keep in mind all of the alternative ways that were listed, such as Vitri dishing and things like and micro dosing, it could actually help make a huge impact on animal lives and help save them from the pain that they go through during experiments. Another point is to remember that it's not proven to be a good way to show a comparison to the human body when tested on animals, as there is a lot of tragedies that have been occurred, stated earlier, that were caused because the comparison to the human body was so overly trusted in. And lastly, animal testing is unnecessarily expensive and inefficient to both labs and to researchers. So the big concept here is that The inhumane testing of drugs, foods, chemicals, and cosmetics is unethical and should be deemed illegal. Thank you for listening. Bye.
It's Stevie again. Here are our citations with all of the websites we used for our presentation, broken down with all of the topics we went over. And that is our presentation. Thanks for listening, guys. I know it's been a long 25 minutes. Bye.